My life starts out like any typical person's would. I'm from small town USA. I played football and was pretty much the star of the team. This got me lots of attention, and it went to my head. Everyone in town would stop and talk to me, and the girls would flirt. I really liked that, of course, but there was one girl I really had my eyes on. She was so pretty. The way she moved, her eyes, her smile. I just adored everything about her, even her name. Erika. We started dating and did all the typical stuff. Prom, movies, hanging out. She even wore my football jersey. Yeah, I was full of myself. Finally, high school was coming to an end, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do. I decided to enlist in the military. It seemed like the cool thing to do, but Erika was not so happy about this. She didn't want me to leave and be gone for long periods of time, but I enlisted anyways.
Well, if you're going to enlist in the military, then I'm going to go off to college.
I didn't like this, and threw a bit of a fit, telling her I was afraid she might meet some new guy, and forget about me. I've come to realize I was controlling and wanted everything my way. I told her I'd send her money and take care of her, but I was actually being selfish and only taking care of my needs. She finally agreed after my many demands and temper tantrums. Looking back on this, I have many regrets. The day finally came when I needed to leave for my new military career. My parents wanted to drive me to the airport, and of course, Erika wanted to come with. Erika and I sat in the back seat. She sat very close to me, almost on top of me. I looked up to the front seat and could see my mom in the rearview mirror. She was in tears. I called out to her and said, "Mom, please don't be upset." As I said this, Erika looked at me and she too was crying. I tried to make light of this and said, "Oh, come on, I'm not going to be gone forever." This brought no comfort to Erika or my mother. I think that was the first time I regretted enlisting. We finally arrived at the airport, went through security, and got in. We were a bit early. While we waited for my plane, everyone was quiet. My dad was pacing back and forth, deep in thought. I watched him for a while and then I stood up and got in his path. "Dad, what's wrong?" He said nothing as he stopped in front of me. He then put his arms around me and hugged me. I don't think he had hugged me that much and that hard since I was 10. As we finally broke away, I could see he was in tears too. This really got me. I'm not sure if I've ever seen my dad cry before. I felt guilty and a bit mad at the same time. I wanted them to be more supportive and reassuring. Finally, my plane arrived and it was time to board. I gave hugs and kisses, holding Erika the longest. I told her I loved her. That was the first time I had ever told her that. She smiled and wiped her tears away.
I know you do, and I love you too.
I kissed her again and then grabbed my bags and headed for the plane. As I walked, I stopped for a moment and looked back. They were all huddled together and crying. They waved. I waved back and turned away. I too started to cry a bit, but I didn't want them to see that, so I headed to the plane. After a 2-hour flight, I arrived. I got off the plane, got my stuff, and got onto a bus. They were rushing us and I didn't understand why. Lots of yelling and stupid demands. I started to think, oh boy, what did I get myself into? We arrived at base about an hour later. Again, we were being yelled at and hurried. We got to our barracks and were told to pick a bunk bed. They then told us to settle in. We were going to have a long day tomorrow. At about 5 in the morning they came in yelling and telling us to get out of bed. They issued us shorts and t-shirts, and then took us outside and had us doing push-ups and sit-ups, yelling at us endlessly. Then they took us on a run. We finally went to breakfast. Again, they yelled at us. I was like, good God, do they ever stop yelling? We were rushed to eat. We were then issued uniforms, underclothes, and a rifle. They shaved our heads, gave us shots, checked our teeth, and never stopped yelling. This went on all the way through basic training. This endless yelling and endless exercising and endless training broke a few guys and they failed out. They were sent home in disgrace. I thought to myself, I can't fail. I have to finish this. I can't be sent home and have to explain to people why I didn't make it. So I doubled down and worked my butt off. I became squad leader. Some guys hated me for it, and other guys seemed to admire my determination. I remember mid-morning we would receive mail from home. It was very disheartening if you didn't get mail. So I would write to Erika and complain if she didn't write me every day. So she started writing me every day.
I want to get out of this boring little town.
I would get mad and guilt trip her and tell her to stop being so selfish. We would leave that town when the time was right.
People are leaving every day in flocks without telling anyone. No one wants to be here.
I, of course, didn't listen to her needs and desires, and only got on her case and demanded she stay, not realizing the only thing I was doing is driving her away more. I finished basic training. I finished with honors, of course. Oh, my ego was always being fed. I really thought I was awesome. My parents and Erika came to my graduation. It was so wonderful to get to see them. It had only been 2 months since I seen Erika, but it seemed like it had been so much longer than that. Later that day, I got some alone time with her. I wanted to hold her and kiss her, but all she wanted to do was complain about our little town. How she wanted out, and how so many people had just up and left. I was tired of hearing this and became angry. I told her to stop. Just stop already. I'll be done training soon, and I will get assigned a post soon enough. Then I'll come get you and we can start our new life.
That sounds good, but how long am I going to have to wait?
I didn't have an answer for her. We spent the rest of the night together and it was great. The next morning I had to head out for my advanced training. That would take about 3 months and then I could come get her.
Promise it'll only be 3 months?
I promise. Another one of my big mistakes. I went on to ranger school and then airborne training and every kind of training I could get. I wanted patches to fill my uniform. I love to brag. Look at me, see what I have done and can do. Yeah, my ego was always being fed. So I played along for a couple months, trying to figure out how I was going to tell her that I was going to Army Ranger school. I was only about 2 weeks from finishing my advanced training. So I came up with a plan. I told her I was picked to go to Ranger school, and I had no say in it. That, of course, was less than truthful. She became very upset and hung up on me. She had never done this before. Of course, it got me really upset. How dare she hang up on me? I tried calling her back, but she ignored my calls. That got me even more upset. I kept calling and even left a few voicemails that I should not have left. Finally, I told her in a voicemail, "Look, if you can't support me, then we're done. I can't believe you won't support me on this." I didn't mean it, but I thought that might get her to call me. Well, it didn't work, and so I finally gave up. I decided to call it a night because I had to be up early for training. When I got up in the morning, I looked at my phone, hoping she had texted or tried to call, but nothing. Wow, I can't believe she's doing this to me. I headed off for training and had to leave my phone behind. All day I thought about Erika, and was hoping when I got back there would be a voicemail. It was a very long day. I didn't want to lose Erika. Finally, training was over. I rushed back to my barracks. No, I ran as fast as I could back to my barracks. I grabbed my phone and checked, but my phone was off. So I tried to power it up, but it was dead. "Darn it," I said out loud. My bunk buddy laughed and said,
"Girlfriend trouble?"
I shot him a dirty look with no reply. He laughed again and walked off. I grabbed my charger and plugged it in. I had to wait a bit before I could power up my phone. My god, it felt like it was taking forever. Finally it powered up, staring at my phone in disbelief as there were no calls or texts from Erika. So I sat there thinking I better call her, and I'm going to have to do some serious smooth talking. She answered, and that caught me a little off guard. "Erika, I love you, and I'm so sorry for what I said yesterday. Please forgive me." I thought to myself, I never say sorry. I'm always the one in control. At that moment, I realized how much I loved her, and I needed to be truthful. No more lying, and some honesty was needed here. "Erika?"
What do you want?
That caught me off guard too. "Erika, please listen to me, okay? Erika, are you there?"
Yes. What do you want?
"Okay, Erika, you have every right to be mad. I'm sorry, but I signed up for Ranger School. I did it for us. I'll get a nice pay raise."
Oh, really? Stop lying. Everything you do is for you, not us.
"No, Erika, I swear it is for us." "Erika?"
So how long is Ranger School? How long this time?
2 months. Erika? Then the phone went silent. She had hung up again. My God. That drew laughter from my bunk buddy and a couple other guys sitting nearby. Shut up and mind your own business. That got them laughing even more. I stormed out of the barracks. I tried calling her. I bet I called 20 times. Then I started sending texts. She still didn't respond. I was getting mad and worried. She had never acted like this before. I was thinking to myself, if she finally gets over it and accepts that I'm going to ranger school, she's going to go crazy when I tell her I'm going to airborne school as well. A few days passed and not a word from Erika. I tried every day but to no avail. Finally, one of my buddies said to stop calling her.
If you keep calling her, she's going to keep being mad.
I thought about this and realized he was right. So I sent her one last text and said, Erika, I'm so sorry for all of this. I'll stop calling you and texting you and give you time to think. Call or text me when you're ready to talk. A few days passed and still nothing. It was killing me. I wanted to talk to her so bad. Then finally a text came through. It said,
Can I call?
I didn't text her back. I called her.
Hello?
Her voice was like music to my ears. Erika, I love you so much. Thanks for taking my call.
Derek, you need to stop stringing me along. I went out of this town, and I'm not the only one. You would not believe how many people have left, and I'm ready to do it myself, with or without you. I want the truth. When are you going to be done with all this training, and did you sign up for any more training? I just want the truth.
Well, okay. After ranger school, I'm going to airborne school. She started to cry and asked me why, and asked if I really wanted us to be together. I assured her over and over that I did, and I would come get her after airborne school.
How long is airborne school?
3 weeks. She hung up again. I was so angry I near slammed my phone on the floor, but I called her instead, and much to my surprise she answered. Erika, stop hanging up. We need to talk this over.
Talk? Or listen to your never-ending lies?
She was right. I pleaded with her and swore I'd never lie again, and promised her I'd come home after airborne school. She finally agreed.
Okay, but if you don't come home after airborne school, I'm going to leave this town, and we are done.
I promised her again. We talked nearly every day after that. It was nice hearing from her, but she always went on and on about how many people had left town, and how she wanted out too. So I would have to assure her over and over I was coming home after airborne school. Finally, I completed ranger school, and it was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. I started airborne school nearly right away. We continued to talk every day. She was so excited that I would be home shortly. I was moving up in rank pretty fast. About halfway through airborne school, I was asked if I wanted to go to sergeant school. This is something I would have to do if I wanted to move up in rank. I was so tempted, but I decided I would talk to Erika about it, and I knew it would not go well. Of course I was right. She freaked out the second I mentioned it, so I told her I would delay doing it until after I came home, and I could get her out of that town. I think she doubted me, and she seemed very on edge every time we talked after that. I was only a couple days from being done with school, and she stopped taking my calls, and would not reply to my texts. It drove me nuts. Finally, I finished school, and was given a 30-day leave. I flew home and pretty much dropped all my stuff on the floor at my parents' house and rushed over to Erika's house. I was greeted at the door by her dad, but he was not happy to see me. Well, where is she?
I have no idea. I was hoping you would know.
That confused me. I stood there thinking, and then asked him why he thought I might know.
Well, she left a few days ago, and never let us know she was leaving, and we have not heard a word from her.
He then slammed the door shut, leaving me completely confused. Did she meet another guy? Did she decide she didn't want to see me after all? I have never felt this confused and not in control in my life. I went back to my parents' house. I needed to talk to them, see if they knew anything or had any ideas. My parents were no help. They had no idea what Erika was doing or why she might have left. All they really had to say was there have been a huge number of people that just up and left. I found that odd, and I needed answers. So I went up and talked to the sheriff. He was friendly at first, but as soon as I asked about Erika, he seemed annoyed. Why are you so annoyed?
I'm sick of everyone thinking I'm supposed to know where everyone is. People don't check in with me before leaving town.
But there has been a very unusual amount of people leaving town, right?
It's a small town with no future. People move on. It happens all the time in small towns.
But Sheriff, people don't just get up and leave town and tell no one. You need to do your job and find out why this is happening.
I don't need you to tell me how to do my job. I think it's time you leave. I have things to do.
He showed me the door. I guess at that point, I decided to look up my old friends and see if they knew anything. I decided to call up 4 of my friends: Brett, Jesse, Brock, and Blake. Brock and Blake were brothers. I played football with these guys. Each seemed to have unique talent on the field. Brock could run faster than anyone I knew. Blake always seemed to be able to make the tackle. Brett could sneak in there and knock the ball out, and Jesse always got to the fumble before anyone else could. Brett was a bit hardcore. He could come across as very brass, but deep down, he had a big heart. He also had a passion for baseball, and often had a baseball bat with him everywhere he went, as corny as that may sound. Brock was always goofing around. He always had a smart comment about most everything. Blake was always focused on the moment, and liked to clown around like his brother. Jesse was a teddy bear, soft-spoken and solid and strong as a bear. They all agreed to meet up. We decided to have a little bonfire and drink some beer. I was really looking forward to seeing them and talking about our football days, but I really wanted to find out what was going on in this town and why all these people are leaving, but most of all, see what they knew about Erika. We met up around 9 o'clock just before dark. We met at an old farm place just outside of town. I arrived first. I gathered up a bunch of wood and set up chairs. One by one they showed up. Hugs and handshakes were passed about. Brett brought a friend along. He was a very quiet guy. He seemed out of place and maybe a bit shy. We got the fire started and set up our coolers full of beer. I laughed and said, "We have more beer than we need."
I bet I can put down all the beer I brought myself.
Brock of course piped in.
Yeah, I know. I have seen you drink. I bet you're gonna need a ride home.
Brett shot him a dirty look and was ready to engage him. I quickly changed subjects. "What have all of you been doing since I last seen you?" One by one, everyone told me their story.
How about you, soldier boy? Let's hear about how great you've been and how awesome you are.
I didn't want to get into it with Brock, so I kept it short and sweet. After that, I wanted to get into talking about Erika and what is going on in town. So I said, "I hear a lot of people are leaving town."
Yes, but what I find very odd is that they are leaving everything behind. Their houses, cars, clothes, and cell phones. So I would say it's more like they're disappearing.
Everyone agreed. I was speechless for a bit. I had not heard about that, so I asked, "Is this the case with everyone?"
No, but it seems like most are just disappearing.
Has anyone heard anything about Erika?
Yeah, I heard she was dating some jerk that was only into himself. So she ran off with a better guy.
Of course Brock would have to be a jerk and lip off. That enraged me and I stood up. I could feel my face getting warm and turning red. Blake stood up and got between us.
Calm down, soldier boy. You can't take us both. So sit down and chill.
He then turned to Brock.
Knock it off. You're going to start a fight.
Brock laughed and stood up, clenching his fists and staring me down. Brett just sat there drinking his beer and enjoying the show. Jesse hopped up.
Everyone knock it off or I'll body slam all of you.
No one wanted to be the first to sit down, so we stood in silence, just staring each other down. Brett's buddy finally stood up and said,
"Wow, and I thought you guys were all friends, but you're acting like a bunch of little boys. I'm gonna go find a tree and take a leak."
He walked off into the dark. We all looked at Brett and he just sat there and started to laugh and shrugged his shoulders.
Well, idiots, he is right. So everyone just chill out and sit down.
He tapped his bat into the palm of his hand. Slowly, everyone sat down. There was a full minute of silence as everyone just stared at each other. Then, there was a scream. Silence had broken, but it was coming from the dark. We all stood up. We heard a scream and a cry for help. Brett was the first to disappear into the dark, searching for his friend. Then Brock took off right behind Brett, followed by Blake. I stood there not sure what to do, as I watched Jesse run to the cars. I thought, wow, Jesse is running like a coward. I could hear screams and pounding and an eerie squealing. It sounded somewhat like a pig. I grabbed a burning stick, then ran in the direction of the screams. As I got there, a car pulled up. It was Jesse. He flipped on the brights, and for a moment, everyone stopped. I could not believe what I was looking at. It was human-like in shape, but it was in no way human. It had a bony face, huge eyes, slender in build, but very muscular. Its skin was a dark gray and leathery. Its hands had very thick and pointy fingers. Its thumb was kinda curved and sharp down the side. As it folded its fingers and thumb, it looked like a very powerful fist, as the thumb laid between the two fingers. Its feet kinda looked like hooves, but with 3 very thick and sharp toes. Like claws, I guess you could say.
Don't stop. Kill that thing.
Brett again started beating the thing endlessly with his bat, as Brock and Blake kicked and jumped on it. It was a full-out assault. No human could survive this. It seemed to recover quickly from every blow. Each time it tried to move or stand up, Brett would hit it with his bat, knocking it flat out on the ground. I looked over at Jesse, but he was no longer by the car. I looked around and then seen Jesse carrying Brett's friend to the car and putting him in the back seat. He stood back up and yelled at me.
Burn it alive.
I couldn't grasp what was going on. Jesse ran over and grabbed the burning stick out of my hands and stabbed the creature in the chest and jumped back, telling everyone to get away from it. Everyone backed off as the creature screamed in endless pain and bursted into flames. It burned fast, like nothing I had ever seen before. It burned into a very small pile of ashes.
We have to get out of here, now.
He jumped into the driver's seat as the rest of us jumped into the car too. Jesse slammed the car into reverse and backed up a bit, then slammed it into drive.
Hold on, guys.
He slammed into something. I looked up and it was another one of those things. It fell off to the side. Jesse never hesitated and kept his foot on the gas. We then heard a slamming on the trunk. It was one of those creatures. Jesse picked up some speed and hit the road as that creature held on. He then slammed on the brakes, and we heard it roll over the roof and onto the hood and onto the ground. Jesse hit the gas again and ran it over. Everyone was yelling and screaming, but we quickly turned our attention to Brett's buddy. He was really in rough shape and bleeding badly. Before I knew it, we pulled into the hospital. Without hesitation, Jesse stopped the car and got out, opened the door, and picked that guy up out of the back seat and ran him into the emergency room. We followed him in. As we sat in the waiting room, we were silent. I think everyone was trying to make sense of what just happened. A short time later, the sheriff and a couple of deputies came in. The sheriff gave us a very disgusted look and went into the back as the deputies stood watch over us. Several minutes later, the sheriff came out and walked up to us.
What in the world happened to that young man?
He seemed to be focusing mostly on Brett and looking at his bat.
You start, Brett. Tell me what happened.
Well, we got together outside of town at that old farm place, and we were having a bonfire and drinking some beer. Well, then there was a little argument about some stuff, and he got mad and went to take a leak. Then we heard him screaming, and this monster thing was beating him up, so we killed it, and then more chased us, but we got away and took him to the hospital.
The sheriff just stood there looking at Brett.
A monster, huh? What kind of monster?
Gargoyles.
Everyone turned their attention to Jesse. The sheriff was less than thrilled.
I think you boys will be going with us to the police station and giving statements, and spending a few days in jail until I can sort this out.
They put us all in handcuffs and walked us out. We arrived at the station in just a couple short minutes. They got statements from all of us, then locked us all up. After we were all locked up, the sheriff came in.
I don't believe one word of your story. Also, this bogus story seems rehearsed.
I tried to reassure him it was the truth. He would not even look at me. He interrupted me.
When that young man recovers enough to tell me what really happened, you boys will all be charged. So you better start thinking about telling me the truth and not some nonsense about gargoyles.
He walked out and slammed the door behind him and left. We all sat there wondering how in the world did we end up in jail. We didn't do anything wrong. I broke the silence and asked Brett, what's your friend's name anyway? He turned and looked at me.
His name is Ryan.
How do you know him?
He is my girlfriend's brother.
Oh.
Yeah, this is not going to go over well with my girlfriend.
But he will tell them it wasn't us, and that it was a gargoyle.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't die. And if he does die, we are all screwed.
That struck us all pretty hard. Brock was right. I try to stay positive and reassure everyone Ryan will make it. And he will clear us. I then turn to Jesse. How did you know how to kill that thing? And how do you know they're gargoyles?
Well, I seen this movie when I was a kid. That's how they killed them.
A movie? Really, Jesse? So now you're the pro on Gargoyles because you've seen a stupid movie?
Well, it worked, didn't it?
Jesse and his one-liners seem to always shut people up and actually make sense. Well, you guys sure handled that gargoyle pretty well and really jumped into action.
Yes, we did, but what about you, soldier boy? You were the last to show up, and you did nothing but stand there, like a coward. I thought you had all that training. I thought you were always going to be a hero. But not tonight. You were a scared little boy and did nothing.
I looked at the floor and thought, he was right.
Well, he did bring the burning sticks, and actually, I was the last one there.
Shut up, Jesse. He was a punk and a coward tonight.
Jesse stared him down and started to get up, and Brock took a step towards him. I stepped between them and quickly said, Brock is right. I failed tonight, but even worse yet, I failed my friends. Promise you guys, this will never happen again. I swear it.
Yeah, we will see.
Well, I hope we never see one again.
Okay, guys, everyone just shut up and go to sleep. We might have a long day tomorrow.
I can't imagine being able to sleep at this point, but I decided to give it a try. After a long night of tossing and turning, I did finally doze off. I was woken by a voice saying it's time to eat. I opened my eyes and it took a little bit for me to realize where I was. I thought to myself, I wish this was all a bad dream. But of course it wasn't. So I looked over and seen the jail guard standing there very impatiently, waiting for us to take our trays. The first thing I could think of was to ask about Ryan, hoping for good news, that he was okay and could back up our story. The guard said nothing and rolled his eyes. So one by one, we took our trays and sat down. None of us were very interested in eating. We just sat there deep in thought.
What's going to happen? Are we going to be released or see the judge?
Well, bro, it's Saturday morning. We won't see a judge until Monday at the earliest.
So we just sit here till Monday?
Yep, and it's going to suck.
The guard finally returns and demands our trays. Again, he was very impatient as we gave him them.
Lunch is at noon, and visitors can come at 2.
Then off he goes. I had not considered that. I didn't want my parents to see me like this. Not much was said that morning. I think we were all thinking about what we were going to tell our family and friends. Time passed very slowly. I suppose that's kind of the point of jail. We could hear lots of talking and some yelling, and even some crying. I could only assume it was family and friends. Finally, lunch arrived. Again, the guard was cold and impatient. We took our trays and went over and sat down. I looked at my food and was trying to figure out what it was, and couldn't help but notice there was not very much food to eat. However, everyone did eat most everything on our trays. Finally, the guard returned and collected our trays, again, not saying a word. I tried talking to him, but he mostly ignored me and rolled his eyes.
You all have visitors, and I'll be back shortly to get you all one at a time.
None of us were very excited about getting visitors. What were we going to say? What were they going to say to us? As promised, the guard returned. One by one we were taken from our cells as 2 other officers stood back watching us. I was led into a small room with a phone attached to the wall and a monitor built into the wall. I was told the screen will activate when you pick up the phone. I paused. I was not ready to face my parents, or whoever was there to see me. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. There on the screen was my parents. My mom was crying, and my dad had that worried look on his face. Hi, Mom and Dad. Right away, my mom asks,
What did you do?
My dad grabbed her hand.
I'm gonna get you a lawyer. Don't say a word.
Who beat up Ryan? And please tell me you had no part in it.
Mom, just stop. They have it all wrong. My dad squeezed her hand.
What happened?
Okay, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I swear it's the truth. I told them everything that happened in detail. As I finished, my mom started to cry again. My parents looked at each other, and I could tell they did not believe a word I said.
30 seconds.
What do you mean 30 seconds?
20 seconds.
I looked back at my parents. Please believe me.
I'll get you the best lawyer I can.
The screen shut off. We're not done talking.
Oh, yes, you are.
He grabbed my arm and led me back to my cell. Jesse and Brett were already back. Brett was pacing back and forth. I asked him who his visitor was. He stopped dead in his tracks.
It was my girlfriend, and she is very mad and called me every name in the book. And I'm pretty sure she made up a few new words for me.
I didn't know what to say, so I asked Jesse who came in to see him.
It was my parents. They believed me and said they will support me through this.
I thought to myself how great that was, but how could they believe him? The jail door opened and Brock and Blake walked in. Who came to see you guys?
Our parents.
How did that go? Blake filled me in and it was pretty much the same thing that happened with me. Sunday came and went much like Saturday. Finally, it was Monday morning, and we were due to see the judge. They handcuffed us and put ankle cuffs on as well. It was hard to walk in them and it kinda hurt too. As we entered the courtroom, everyone turned and looked at us. It was packed full of people. I could even hear people in the halls and outside. After a moment passed, people started yelling at us and blaming us for what happened to Ryan, and others started to blame us for all of the missing people. It was getting crazy, and I was starting to worry about my own safety. Then the judge came in and ordered everyone to calm down and be quiet. Slowly the room went silent as the judge kept making the same demand over and over.
I understand people are very upset, but we must maintain law and order.
He then read us our rights and told us how this court hearing was going to go. He turned to the prosecutor and asked to hear all charges. Just as she was getting ready to speak, the doors flew open, and someone ran up to the prosecutor and gave her a piece of paper. She read it and whispered back to the messenger.
Do you have something to share with the court?
Yes, Your Honor. It appears Ryan has woken up and is saying the defendants did not attack him, and is making the same claims as the defendants, that he was attacked by a monster. So we are forced to drop all charges and ask the defendants to be released.
Are you certain?
Yes.
Okay, it's the order of this court to drop all charges and release the defendants as soon as possible.
Everyone was stunned, and you could hear people whispering and talking. I, of course, was very relieved. We were rushed out of the court faster than we were brought in. We were brought back to our cells and the cuffs were removed. Then the guard locked us in the cell. I immediately asked, "Why are you locking us up? I thought we were being released."
You will, but we need to process you out. So hang tight, guys. It might take a little while.
He turned and walked off. Then in comes the sheriff. He walks up to the bars and looks at us.
Okay, guys, what the heck is going on?
We all looked at each other and I said, "We already told you, but you don't believe us."
Okay, let's go with your story. You say you killed it.
Yes, we did.
But it burned up and there's no body, huh?
Yeah.
You said you beat this thing, huh?
It's not a thing. It's a gargoyle.
Okay, gargoyle. You beat it, jumped on it, kicked it, hit it with a baseball bat, and it had no lasting effect and it recovered quickly.
Yeah.
But fire killed it.
Again. Yeah.
Will bullets kill one?
Nope.
Then what else will kill one?
Sunlight will. They turn to stone if caught in the sun. Then you can smash the stone, and they die.
What if you don't smash the stone?
They will come back to life as soon as the sun goes down.
Really? And how do you know so much about how to kill gargoyles?
Well, I'd seen it in a movie.
The sheriff started to laugh, and then turned away and walked off, laughing even harder with every step. About an hour later, the sheriff returned with a couple of guards. He gave us our clothes.
So, what are your plans?
I don't know. We haven't really talked about it.
Okay, listen. I'm not sure what to think about all of this, but I want to get to the bottom of it. So let's meet in the morning and go looking around. It should be safe during the day according to Jesse, the professional gargoyle killer.
If you're not going to get smart about things, then how about you do it without our help?
I thought to myself, wow, Brock is getting mad about a smart mouth comment. Now that's kind of funny. We talked it over and all agreed we would go home and meet in the morning. After leaving jail and walking around in public, it was obvious people were talking about us when they seen us. Some were friendly, some steered clear, and others offered us their support. We all went home. My mother was crying when I came in and ran over to hug me. My dad had a big smile. We sat and talked for a while and ate. I could not help but wonder how things were going for everyone. Finally, I hit the shower and went to bed. I did not sleep well. all I could do was think about everything that happened, and about Erika, and about tomorrow, and what that might bring. I finally got out of bed and went to the kitchen to have breakfast. My dad was sitting there drinking coffee. He leaned back.
Okay, Derek, we need to talk. I love you, and you're always welcome here. But I think you should go away and let things in town here calm down for a little while. Please, take my advice.
I love you too, Dad, and I respect your opinion, but I have no plans of leaving until I know what happened to Erika, and I want some revenge on those gargoyles.
No, there's no such thing. You need to stop it. People are thinking you're crazy, and others think you're just making it up.
No, Dad. I'm meeting my friends and the sheriff today, and we're going to go looking for them. He leans back again, and I could see it in his face. He was ready to chew me out. My mom walks in.
Good morning, Derek. So, what's your plans for the day?
Well, not too much. I'm going to go hang out with my friends.
Oh, I think you should avoid going uptown.
I jumped to my feet and said, Mom, Dad, I'm not crazy, okay? I'm not a little kid either, so stop worrying about me and stop telling me what to do. I grabbed my stuff and headed out the door.
Derek, I'm sorry. I love you. I wasn't trying to treat you like a little kid.
Okay, Mom. I love you too, but I need to go, alright? I'll see you later. I jumped in my car and headed out. I was the first to arrive. Shortly afterwards, Jesse showed up, followed by Brock and Blake. Where's Brett? Everyone just shrugged their shoulders.
Is the sheriff coming?
Who cares if he does? He's a jerk. He doesn't believe a word of this.
Just as he said that, the sheriff and 2 deputies walked up.
Well, Brock, I don't like you much either.
If all you're gonna do is laugh and be a jerk, then you can go look by yourself, and we will go in our own group without you.
The sheriff looked him in the eyes.
Nope, we are going together, so you guys can't come back with your crazy stories. I want to see this for myself.
It then turned into a stare down.
Okay, guys, this needs to stop. We're supposed to be working together.
Agreed. Where's your buddy Brett?
I'm sure he'll be here soon. The sheriff again started laughing. I could see the rage in Brock's eyes. Let me call him. Everyone just knock it off. Brett didn't answer, but he pulled up right away. He hopped out of his car and popped the trunk. He waved us over, handing up torches and lighters. The sheriff and his deputies declined to take anything Brett was offering.
What are you going to use if we run into the gargoyles?
I have all I need right here.
He placed his hand on his gun.
That won't help you very much.
He again laughs and turns around and walks off.
Come on, let's go kill some gargoyles.
So, we all headed out. We had no idea where to go, or what we might even be looking for. We wandered around for a few hours. Finally, I asked if there were any caves or old mines or any abandoned buildings.
No. There's nothing like that. Maybe they live in the trees.
Brock stops.
You're really getting on my nerves with your laughing and sarcasm.
Yeah, okay, Brock. I have known you for years, and you want to talk to me about sarcasm?
Yeah, all you want to do is laugh and run your stupid mouth as people are missing and most likely dead. How about you knock it off and do your job for a change?
Do my job? I'm out here right now doing my job.
Brock steps up and gets in his face.
You've never done anything but write out tickets and run your mouth.
Jesse gets between them.
I'm going to body slam both of you if you keep it up. We're supposed to be a team, but all I see is everyone wanting to be the tough guy and fighting and sarcasm. If you all don't knock it off, we might as well call this off and go home. So what is it gonna be? Are we a team, or just a bunch of tough guys trying to outdo each other? Let's say the fighting for when it counts. So are you done with this childish fighting or not?
I was happy Jesse finally set everyone straight. It was overdue. I decided to change the subject and asked the sheriff, "What's over there, behind those huge hills?"
Nothing. And I do mean nothing. It's all rock and worthless land.
Well, let's go look. We haven't found a thing yet, so it's worth a look. I could see it in everyone's eyes. They thought it was a waste of time, but everyone reluctantly agreed. It took some time getting there, but when we got to the top of the hill, we were all shocked. Clearly there was something going on here. Rocks had been moved and piled. I turned to the sheriff and said, "I thought you said there were no caves up here."
there isn't.
Oh, what's that then? Looks like a cave to me. I pointed and everyone stared. I could sense everyone was happy we found something, but at the same time, everyone seemed nervous and speechless. Well guys, let's go look. It is early noon, so we have plenty of daylight left. We all headed off for this newly discovered cave. As we approached, we could feel warmth, a humid kind of warmth. There was also a glow coming from inside.
It looks like we found them.
The sheriff looked at Jesse.
I hope you're wrong.
I'm pretty sure. So let's go.
We all entered and stopped dead in our tracks. There were hundreds, maybe 1,000 eggs or cocoons all lined up. They were in perfect rows, and with each row, the eggs or cocoons were getting bigger and bigger. It was like they were growing. They were also the source of the light. They were glowing and had a strange web-like covering. Each row was also a different color.
What in the world? What are these things?
They're gargoyle pods.
Huh?
There are gargoyles growing in those ponds.
It was hard to not admire how pretty they were.
Come look at this.
We rushed over and seen a huge hole. We looked down into it and it was full of clothes. Ripped and bloody clothes. It made me sick.
Oh my god.
We rushed over to find another deep hole. I looked down and I will never forget what I seen. Bones. Human bones. The hole was full of them. They were bloody and broken human bones. We all looked at each other. Not a word was spoken, but we were all thinking the same thing. I had so many emotions going through my head. Anger, rage, revenge, and I wanted to cry. All those people. I can't imagine the fear and pain they went through.
Guys, come here.
We again rushed to the next hole. What is that?
It's people, and they're alive.
We looked down and seen several people. They were crying and begging us to help them, but we had no rope, no way to get them out. I've never felt so helpless in my life. I wanted to get them out, but there was just no way. I promised them we would be back to get them. But I knew if we did make it back, it might be too late.
Look!
About 50 yards away, we seen 3 gargoyles. They were standing around one of the pods and rubbing it, and removing the web stuff off the pod. Then the pod broke open. A full-sized, fully grown gargoyle stood up. I thought to myself, wow, they're born fully grown. All this was so hard to take in. My mind was racing. I looked over at the sheriff, and he looked worried and scared too. He looked back at me and then back at the gargoyles. Then suddenly, we seen one of the deputies fall backwards. He had been hit in the chest and was presumably dead. The sheriff and the other deputy pulled out their guns and started shooting at the gargoyle. That just killed a deputy, and it had very little effect on the gargoyle. It would stop and slightly fall back with each shot, but would quickly recover and move forward again. Brett lit up his torch and put it between the gargoyle's legs. It burst into flames and burnt up very quickly.
Let's get out of here.
Everyone made a mad dash for the entrance as Brett kept burning the gargoyles. That allowed us to escape, but there was just too many, and Brett could not keep up. We yelled for him to run. He finally tossed his torch down at the gargoyle's feet and ran. They pursued him, and it looked like for a moment, Brett was not going to make it out. But he did. He did finally make it to the entrance, and dove to get out. Much to our surprise, about 4 gargoyles came out of the entrance in pursuit of Brett. We panicked and all jumped back. The most amazing thing happened. As Jesse had said, they all turned to stone. We could hear the other gargoyles at the entrance screaming like wounded pigs. Brett stood up and was out of breath. I'm not sure if it was because he was running or just that scared. He reached down and picked up his trusted bat and swung it downwards on top of the head of one of the gargoyles. It crumbled into a pile of sand. He stopped for a moment in shock at how easily it crumbled. Then he hit the second one the same way and got the same results, and then turned to the third one and did it again. With only one left, he reared up to finish it off as well. A thought ran through my head, and I grabbed the bat, stopping him and said, "Hold on. I have an idea. How about we take this back to town and put it in the jail cell?"
Why would we do that?
So we can see if it reanimates and comes back to life after dark. Then we will have proof that these things exist, and maybe get more help taking these things out.
How are we going to do that?
Well, let's send a couple guys back to the truck and load it up. but we need to hurry so we can get this done before it gets dark out. Blake and Brock volunteered.
Well, get going and hurry up.
Okay, but why'd you stop laughing? Where's the sarcasm?
I'm sorry. I didn't believe a single word you guys said. But now I've seen it for myself. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
Let's go, bro. We need to get this done fast.
As we waited for them to return, we could hear the gargoyles screaming and running around inside their self-made cave. It was a bit unnerving to listen to and scary. I was worried it would take them too long to get back, and that we would have to smash the stone gargoyle and not have enough time to get out of there. The sheriff again apologized. He explained to me that it was just too hard to believe, and now that he has seen them and knows it's true, he isn't sure he can convince anyone else.
They're going to think I'm crazy.
I understood what he was saying. I mean, who in their right mind would believe something like this? After about an hour, we could hear a truck. Thank God the brothers made their way back. I told them to back up as close as they could. This stone gargoyle is going to be very heavy. Let's try not to damage it as we put it in. It took all of us to do it. We tied it up the best we could. We were trying to hurry. I suggested that a couple of guys ride in the back and try to help hold it so it doesn't tip. We then took off and headed for town. It was going to be dark soon, and we're running out of time. We backed up to the jail and the sheriff ordered a bunch of deputies to come out and help. It took a lot of effort to get it into the station. It got banged around more than I wanted, but we did get it into a cell. After we got it in there, we locked the door. One of the deputies finally asked,
"Why are we putting a stone statue in jail?"
That drew some laughter from the other deputies.
Stop laughing. It's not a stone statue. It's a gargoyle.
Silence fell in the room.
Okay, but why are you putting it in jail?
Because it's going to come back to life when it gets dark outside.
All the deputies looked at each other very confused.
Sheriff? Are you okay?
I'm fine. You have no idea what we have been through today, or the things we've seen. No one is going home tonight, not a chance in hell. It's mandatory overtime tonight. Everyone load up your guns. Brett, give everyone a torch and lighter. It might be a long, crazy night.
The sheriff pulled up a chair in front of the cell and sat down. He did not take his eyes off the stone statue.
Jesse, tell them what we're up against, and tell them how to kill these things. These gargoyles.
Jesse steps up.
Okay, guys. These gargoyles are pretty tough. Guns will not kill them. It'll only slow them down for a brief moment. They'll keep coming after you. There are only two ways to kill them: fire and sun. As you can see, they turn to stone when they're exposed to the sun. You can then smash them, and they'll crumble into a pile of sand.
All the deputies looked at Jesse, and then the sheriff, and then at the stone statue.
Oh, come on. That sounds like something out of a movie.
Well, there was a movie made about all of this.
No one is leaving here tonight. My guess is the stone statue will come back to life soon, and when they do, the gargoyles will come here and try to free it and try to kill us all. We are going to take a stand here and try to get through the night. I do not want anyone to leave because I want to draw all these gargoyles here, so that they don't attack any civilians. Is that clear?
So if any of this is true, you want us to stand our ground here and let them kill us instead?
This got the sheriff really mad.
Listen here. We took an oath to serve and protect, and that is exactly what we are going to do. Now everyone get your guns ready and get your torches ready.
We all stood and watched the stone statue in the window as it was starting to get dark. As darkness finally came, we noticed the statue begin to change color. It was turning a dark gray color. Then we seen the eyes blink. It freaked out a few of the deputies. Everyone took a step back except the sheriff. He had gone from a sarcastic jerk to dead serious in just a few short hours. Then it started to move, and turned its head and looked at us, and gave out the deafening scream. The sheriff stood up and yelled back. The gargoyle got quiet, and just stared at the sheriff. Then without warning, it stood up and lunged at the sheriff, but the steel bar stopped it cold in its tracks. The sheriff walked up and looked it dead in the eyes.
Tomorrow, I'm gonna kill every one of you ugly sons of bitches.
As he stood there staring it down, the dispatcher ran into the room.
I'm getting a lot of calls. People are claiming they've seen monsters, and others are claiming they have seen aliens in town, and they are coming this way.
Okay, guys, get ready for the fight of your life.
What is that thing?
They are not things. They're gargoyles.
He instructed us to stand in a circle and to watch the doors closely. A fair amount of time passed, and we heard nothing, and seen nothing. As I stood there, I looked at the walls made of concrete. I thought to myself, could they get through that? The windows were high up off the ground, small, and had bars on them, so it was unlikely they would come in that way. The doors were made of solid steel, and they were also very thick. I was thinking this room is built to keep anyone from getting out, but could it also keep things from getting in?
Form a circle so we can watch from every direction.
I looked around at everyone. Some looked scared to death, others looked confused, and others seemed ready to fight. Then suddenly the gargoyle we had locked up started screaming and pounding on the bars. The bars held, but I had doubts that those bars would hold up to constant pounding. My heart was racing. I was not sure if we could stand our ground against an all-out assault from these gargoyles. A lot of time passed, and nothing happened. I was beginning to think the night might pass without an assault. Just as some of us seemed to relax, we heard pounding on the steel doors. Very hard pounding, and it was relentless. We watched the doors closely, and I noticed it seemed to be breaking away from the wall. The concrete was cracking, and it was only a matter of time before it came down. I rushed to the door and put my back against the wall next to the door.
Get back in the circle!
I ignored his demands. As I watched the door loosen away from the concrete, I thought, 3/4 of the night had passed. They will have to give up soon because they will need time to return to their caves. Suddenly the door came down and crashed to the floor. A moment passed, and then 3 gargoyles rushed in. Their backs were facing me, and they were not aware that I was there, so I torched the one in the middle, and all 3 bursted into flames. I rushed back to the circle, and the sheriff shot me a smile and nod.
Okay, if they come in groups, torch the middle one if possible.
A little time passed, and we could hear them screaming. It was terrifying to listen to. Then a few more ran in. The deputies started shooting them in the head. This seemed to knock them a little silly, giving someone time to rush up and torch them. This went on for a while. Sometimes it would be only 1, sometimes 3, and sometimes even 5 at a time. But we were having a lot of success with torching them. We were holding them off. We were winning. You could hear the gargoyles screaming even louder. They were angry. So we put much more focus on that door, and killing every single gargoyle that came in. We forgot about the gargoyle we had locked up. The deputies continued to shoot the gargoyles in the head, and others torched them. It was working flawlessly.
We are going to run out of ammo soon, so make them count and conserve your rounds.
Then we heard a crash. We looked over in our prize. Our proof had knocked the bars down. It landed on 2 deputies and Jesse, pinning them to the ground. It rushed out and ran over the bars. It reached down and killed a deputy. This knocked us out of our groove as other gargoyles rushed in. They grabbed Blake. Brock rushed in to save his brother, but was also overpowered and taken. Things seemed to be falling apart. The freed gargoyle was about to take Jesse out, but Brett ran across the room and jumped over the bars and stuffed his torch into the gargoyle's chest. It burst into flames. He was able to save Jesse, but Jesse was still pinned under the bars. We lost Brock and Blake. My team was falling apart.
We will free them after this is over. Get back in the circle. Everyone back in the circle.
Then we heard the 911 dispatcher scream as she was taken too. Everyone was in a panic. Our torches were starting to go out, and we were nearly out of ammo.
Stand your ground. It'll be morning soon. They will have to retreat.
He was right. Slowly their screams faded and became more and more distant. We rushed over to free Jesse and the other deputy. They stood and seemed to be okay. Silence fell in the room as we were still trying to gather our thoughts and take in what just happened. Finally, Jesse spoke up. He always said the darndest things.
Jeez. Nothing like that ever happened in the movie.
That actually brought some much badly needed laughter. We were exhausted. Some of us had been up for over 24 hours at this point. The sheriff stood there with his arms crossed and rubbing his chin. He was deep in thought. We stood there waiting for him to speak. Finally, he looked up.
I know, you guys are exhausted, hungry, and worried, but we have to make them fight. We have to do it today.
He started barking demands and telling everyone what to do.
We need ladders, flashlights, rope, 5 gas cans, and handheld yard sprayers. We will pay for the rest of the stuff later, and any damage done to the door. After that, go to the gas station and fill the gas cans and hand sprayers with gas. Derek, Jesse, and Brett, I want you to gas up the trucks and get bottled water and food from the gas station and charge it all to the city.
We all started to head out. He then stopped us.
I know you guys are tired, but we have no time to rest. We are going to end this today. We are going to kill them all. We are going to get Brock, Blake, our dispatcher, and anyone else being held there. Stay focused until the end, okay? Go get that stuff and come back in an hour, no later.
What are you going to do, Sheriff?
I'm going to get us some ammo. Lots of ammo.
As we gathered the stuff, people in town were asking us what those things were and what we were doing. We mostly ignored them and went on with our business. We rushed back and found the sheriff waiting for us with more guns and lots of ammo.
Take 30 minutes to eat and drink.
We were more than happy to take that order. I sat there thinking to myself, how did this happen? Will I ever get to see Erika again? Will we be able to save Brock and Blake and anyone else? Did those gargoyles kill everyone? Or are they still holding them? I also came to really respect the sheriff. At first, I thought he was a smart mouth and didn't care much about anything. Now, I see a different man. He is solid and determined. That half hour went by fast. We loaded everything in the trucks and headed out. My heart was racing, and you could nearly hear everyone else's hearts as well. We finally arrived. It was the moment of truth, and with some luck, this would be the end of this vicious war. As we hopped out of the truck, the sheriff was already giving orders. He told 4 of his deputies to get the ladders and rope.
You guys will be responsible for getting people out of that hole. I want you to get them out as fast as you can. No hugs or handshakes, just get them out. Derek, Jesse, and Brett, I want you to take the handheld sprayers. You 3 will start at the end and spray those pods with gas. Be quick about it, but spray them down good.
He told 4 more deputies to each grab a gas can and a couple books of matches.
There are 4 holes. They are all thin holes and very deep. I think those things, those gargoyles, sleep down there. So pour the gas down there and drop the can and light them.
He pointed at 4 more deputies.
2 of you take a torch and 2 of you take a gun. You guys will lead the way. Kill every gargoyle you see. Be very aggressive. I want you to eliminate them as fast as possible because we will be dumping gas and spraying gas all over. I don't want any of us getting caught in the fire. Everyone grab a gun. I will be dumping gas on the trail right after we get those civilians out. Remember, stay focused on your task. Get it done. Is everyone ready? Any questions?
No one said a thing and nodded their heads.
Let's go kill some gargoyles.
We all rushed in and were greeted by several gargoyles. Everyone started shooting. It was pure chaos. The sheriff started yelling,
"Stay on task and get those gargoyles."
They rushed us, and everyone kept shooting. I set my spray can down and grabbed a torch from one of the deputies and confronted the gargoyles. I stuck out my torch and got 2 of them. The other deputy got 2 more. The other 3 retreated and were doing that pig scream they did. We gave chase, and one by one we got the other 3. The sheriff yelled out for us to regroup and then told us to stay on task. The 4 deputies with gas cans rushed to the 4 holes and started pouring the gas. The other deputies rushed to the big hole and put the ladders down into them. People started coming up one by one. I couldn't help but watch as I sprayed the pods with gas. I was praying that my friends were still alive. First, it was a woman coming out, and then a man. They looked so beat up and in bad shape. Finally, I seen Brock. He was struggling to get out. I was worried he was badly hurt, but then I seen why. He had Blake holding onto his back. He was carrying his brother out. I wanted to rush over and hug them, but I remembered what the sheriff said. Stay focused and stay on task. The sheriff kept rushing people out. As the deputies were finishing up dumping their gas cans, suddenly I heard a deputy get pulled down the hole, and then another. I screamed to light up the holes, so the 2 remaining deputies struck their matches and dropped them into the holes. You could hear the gargoyles screaming and dying. The screams began to fade. The sheriff demanded they light up the other 2 holes, but the deputies refused because their buddies were down there. He ran over.
They are already dead. Light up some matches. God forgive me.
He dropped matches into each hole. He turned and demanded everyone get out.
The fumes are going to light this cave up.
We all turned and ran. It was a mad dash to get out. Just as we got out, the whole thing burst into flames. Everyone was cheering and hugging each other. We beat those things, someone yelled.
Jesus, they're not things. They're gargoyles.
Everyone started to chuckle. I looked around to see if everyone was out, but I didn't see Brett. I looked in every direction. I seen Brett standing at the bottom of a hill looking up. I looked up the hill to see what he was looking at. Couldn't believe my eyes. Slowly, everyone else fixated at what I was looking at. The chuckling stopped and silence fell upon us. There were 2 gargoyles standing at the top of the hill. They looked very different from the others. They looked old and far more defined, almost Satan-looking. One looked like a male, and the other looked like a female. I said out loud, "So Jesse, was anything like this in the movie?"
No. But I think this is the king and queen.
"How can they be in the sunlight?" Jesse said nothing. Brett ran halfway up the hill and tossed the torch. It landed at the feet of the male. He looked down and picked it up and crushed the flames with his bare hands. My God, even fire has no effect on these 2. Then the gargoyle pointed at me and spoke.
"We will fight again, human."
He leaned forward, and so did the female. Wings emerged. They took flight and flew off into the distance. We were fighting a war, and for a brief moment, I thought we had won. Now I see this was only the first battle, and I'm not sure either side can declare victory.